Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Mike and Shots podcast powered by Buzzly. My name is Divyansh and in this episode I'll be talking to Taranjeet Singh, who is the founder of Embedchain, a technology that empowers people to create LLM powered apps on top of their own data. Imagine talking to ChatGPT with context from your very own data. But the important aspect here is that Taranjeet is a young entrepreneur who's changing the world with the power of technology. So I'll be talking to Taranjeet about his journey into entrepreneurship, how he built Embedchain, and his perspective on the future of AI. On that note, let's get started.
What's up, man? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Divyansh. Really excited to be here.
I'm equally excited because Taranjeet, I've been knowing you for so many years, more than 10 years now, because we were in the same college, engineering college, and we've had some amazing experiences as well earlier. We'll come to that for sure. But before that, I would like to introduce you a bit. So you are the founder of Embedchain, which is essentially revolutionizing the Gen AI space in a way. We'll talk more about it for sure, but I would love to know more about Embedchain from you in this conversation and your journey that you've had to reach at this level. At the same time, I would love to know more about the Gen AI space as to how can beginners or laymen learn more about generative AI, the space, and level up, because anybody can now be a builder, like per se, because that's what I'm also doing personally. I'm not a hardcore tech person, but I'm trying to build something of my own as well. So on that note, Taranjeet, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself and talk about Embedchain.
Yeah, thank you, Divyansh. Been following you for long as well. We already have a good history of knowing each other since college days. So we'll start with what I am doing at Embedchain. Embedchain right now is an open source framework which allows you to create ChatGPT kind of apps, but on top of your own data. So if I have to define you in a very simpler terms, so there is an LLM. One of the most known LLM right now is ChatGPT, but the ChatGPT does not have context of your own data. So let's say if today you go to chat.openai.com and you ask how many emails in my Gmail inbox are talking about credit card, or what's the next meeting about on my calendar. So ChatGPT won't be able to answer anything for that, right? Because it doesn't have context of your data. So now there is a way wherein you can pass your data to an LLM like ChatGPT. And that's the technology that Embedchain is based on. We call it the simplest context retrieval framework focused on AI developers. AI developers are like software developers who are new to AI. And the idea is if they are building an AI app on top of their own data, their biggest problem is getting right context from their custom data to send to LLM. So our solution right now is an open source framework with 7,400 GitHub stars, and we are doing 48,000 package downloads per month. And we help a developer easily build an app. Even if somebody who's just started coding, they can use our framework and they can build an app in 5 minutes.
Awesome, man. I would like to know more about the meaning of open source, because this is something which is now trending a lot, open source. But I would like to know what is open source and why have you chosen to go this path for now?
So I think open source word defines it very well, open source. So it means that whatever technology you are using or whatever product you are using, the code or the logic behind it is open source. We all use Python, we all use Linux. So everything is all the big softwares that we use. I have been using open source software since 2007 during my school days. So the code is open source. You are free to download it. There are different licenses, there are different permissions. But the idea is that code is there available and you are free to download it. You are free to modify it. You're even free to publish a version of it. So that's what open source is. And the reason why we went for open source is I have been an open source developer since my college days. So open source has benefited a lot, both in my professional and personal career. I've been a software developer, so I've used a lot of open source technologies for long.
Correct.
And the reason we open source Embedchain is we wanted to build trust in the community. We wanted to tell developers that, our technology is open source. So you're free to modify it. You're free to look at what we are doing. And the other reason is we wanted to attract quality contributions from developers. So when you open source a repository and your repository is good, people come and contribute to your code. That helps you like improve your code base, add further features. So one of the contributors at Embedchain added a data type called Q&A pair, and that is like most used data type that we have seen so far. So it's like beauty of open source is like you get to collaborate with people across the world, and you get to build community trust and transparency, and you also get to be a part of a revolution that has been there for long, and you get to contribute to it.
Super, man, you're doing a great job over here, because I'm planning to build something with your technology. And when I say I'm planning to build something, I want to know a little bit more about what people have built using Embedchain, because I've seen your videos on LinkedIn, I've seen your stuff, what people are actually building. They're very excited about Embedchain. So what have people actually built? Can you share some examples as to what are they really building and what's exciting about their examples and their use cases?
Yeah, since we are building a framework which is horizontal, so what happens that people can build anything on top of us, but I'll share like 4 or 5 examples which we see repeatedly across. So one of the classic use cases that we see is somebody trying to build a customer support or a developer support kind of bot. So they will either have a website like a Shopify website, or they will even have like a terms of condition or like a very good set of documents that are difficult to navigate and consume information from. So they'll ingest that using Embedchain, and then they'll build a nicer interface so that they or their users can interact with it. So that's like one of the very common use case that we see across. Another use case that we recently saw is, so there are a few people who are running their own learning management academy. So like they have a LMS, they sell courses, and now they want to offer a chatbot as a value-added service to their students, so that their students can ask questions from the video, from the knowledge base that this person has created. So that's also like one of the good use case that we have seen. And third use case is like a lot of developers are trying to ingest the entire code repository or documentation and using it to do a lot of Q&A on top of documentation and trying to understand the code better. So that's also something that's there. And then we see on the enterprise side, people are trying to ingest a Notion, a Google Doc, Jira, Confluence, Slack chat, so that their product managers or developers or growth people can navigate better, find information intelligently. So these are like some of the high level use cases that we see. We also see some developers replicating popular personalities. Like somebody recently replicated Abraham Lincoln. A developer at OpenAI created this GST RERA bot, wherein he ingested all the GST related and RERA related documents using Embedchain and put it out on an interface, which like a lot of people loved it. Somebody also did this same thing with like legal, wherein they added all the law related documents and like gave it out to their lawyer friends so that they can interact with it. So these are like some of the popular use cases that we see across.
Super, man. Because I also have a friend who's a lawyer, and I was telling him about your Embedchain, that you can actually build something related to law. Your information is there, just attach it to Embedchain. When I say build context relevant stuff, use cases, I would like you to talk about the tech, because the technology is something that people generally, it's tough to understand. But right now here, from what I understand, is not as complicated. But still, I would like you to explain the tech from a very basic layman perspective, so that even everybody understands what's happening behind the scene.
Yeah, I would love to do that. So idea is like there is an LLM, large language model, and large language model has like basic intelligence sorted. So it's like a human being there. It's like an 18-year-old human being that is aware about all the things that a human should be, like about the world, about humans, about society. Now idea is like you want to adjust this human to a particular region or a society. So you like start talking to this human, like you want this human to be aware about all the things happening in Delhi, in India. So you'll talk about the history of Delhi, you'll talk about what Delhi has been through, what are some of the good things in Delhi, how everything works in Delhi, right? So you'll like try to give as much information as possible about Delhi to this person. Now, in terms of technology, if we talk about, same thing is happening here. It's just that instead of telling everything, what we do, we'll take this example only. Let's say we are creating a Delhi AI, which has all the latest information about Delhi, and we are using like LLM like ChatGPT. So right now, if you go to ChatGPT and if you try asking something which happened today in Delhi, maybe like today's weather, ChatGPT won't be able to tell it, right? But let's say if you are able to pass the weather information data in some way to ChatGPT, then ChatGPT will tell, okay, today's weather in Delhi is this, and it's expected to be this by So
Right.
what happens here is that you take up this knowledge base, which is like the weather data of the past 10 years till today, and you put it
Okay.
into a database. Now, this database is a special database. It's not the traditional relational databases that we have seen. This database is a database that's good with numbers, especially vectors. So we in our 10th class, we have studied vector cosine similarity, right? So like we have a vector of x comma y comma z or x comma y. Same thing happens here. What we do is that all the weather data that's there, we convert that textual data into a list of numbers, and these numbers are like floating point numbers. These are like decimal numbers, and there is a space. So normally we in our world we have seen like 2D 3D space, but in this space it's very n dimensional. So it's like 700 dimensional, 1000 dimensional, 1500 dimensional. It's a very big vector space, and this space has learned the representation of a text, and it will automatically represent that text into a particular place. So let's say if you say that my name is Taranjeet, and if you pass this through something, and the output that you get will be a list of numbers, and this number will get represented at a particular point in the vector space. So there is a
Okay.
model. We call that thing as the embedding model. This embedding model
Okay.
takes text as an input, and then it gives a number, like it gives a list containing floating point numbers at the end, and these floating point numbers represent a particular vector in this n dimensional vector space. Now this embedding
Okay.
model can also take an image, can also take anything, but the most common thing is taking a text and giving up giving a vector. And then what happens that let's say now, so what we'll do is like if you're creating Delhi AI, you will take all the weather data that's there and you will pass it through an embedding model, and you'll get like list of like thousands of vectors that's there, and you'll store that data into a vector database. So vector database is a special type of database that is optimized specially to store and retrieve vectors. So like we have relational
Okay.
databases where we can store all the relational, we know like SQL, like MySQL, right? So we can store all the
Yeah.
relational data that's there. It is meant for storing vectors specially. So now what happens that the step one is you take all the weather data and you put it into a vector database, and you have all the vectors that's there. Now
Correct.
what you do is you will have a query. The query will be what is today's weather, or what is weather for maybe 30th of January. So now what will happen that you will take this sentence and you will again run it through an embedding model, and you will get the vector representation of this text as well. So let's say you have thousands of vector, and now you got an input query and you got a vector representation of this text. Now what you will do, you will do the simple mathematical operations that we were taught in our class 10th, wherein you will now go to each vector and calculate the cosine similarity with each vector that's there. So now there are multiple optimizations that you do wherein you don't need to calculate, because if you go and calculate with each vector that's there, it's slow. So there are like various clustering algorithms wherein automatically we figure out what's the closest vector cluster that's there, and we go and like find out cosine similarity with all the vector that's there, and the one which has the highest cosine similarity will be picked up, and that will be the similar, like most similar document to this. Now what happens here is this gets retrieved as a context. So this is what the context is. Context is basically from your set of documents that you have. Given an input query, you are finding a set of similar documents that are there for this query, and this is what we call as context. Now from here onwards, what you do is you have that 18-year-old human, and you are telling that human that, hey, I am giving you a query. The query is what's weather for 30th of January, and I'm giving you some context. And in the context, whatever documents you got from that cosine similarity, which were the closest matches to it, you'll do that. And then you'll say that on the basis of this context, you have to answer to the query. And if you feel that you do not know the answer to this query, say that you do not know. So what you did was you, instead of scanning everything, you contextualized an LLM to a specific set of context. And that's how this LLM is now aware about your custom data. So this is what we call as, I mean, there are different terms, but this was introduced by Meta. This entire technology is called as retrieval augmented generation, RAG. And yeah, this is what like Embedchain is based on.
This is actually so fascinating to understand because people want to build these use cases, and also the fact that you said cosine functions, etc., which means trigonometry.
Yeah,
And we used to wonder that we'll never use trigonometry ever in our life, but we
yeah.
actually are using a lot of mathematics even in coding, because essentially coding is about mathematics in a way. And I had this question, Taranjeet, because you talked about building context relevant use cases, and you can actually train it in a way, such a way that if you ask out of context questions, it will give you a regular reply that you train it on, right? Or will it answer my out of context questions as well? Think thought
So
in mind.
that's something that you can control using the prompt. So you can simply say that,
Okay,
hey, I'm giving you this context and this query. If you can answer this query from this context fully, answer it. If you're like somewhat sure, answer it, but give me some disclaimer that you're not sure. If you're not even 1% sure, simply say that I don't know. So that's something that you can control
got it.
using the prompt that's there.
Which means that you can set boundaries as well, right? Because otherwise
Yes.
ChatGPT is like has no boundaries. It just goes
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
everywhere and just fetches data. That's
Yeah.
super relevant for smaller companies who are building their relevant for their own relevant startups, or larger companies like banks, etc., that who have their own data as well. So this is an amazing thing to know. And you talked about this tech, and I have seen that it doesn't take too much time for people to actually build these use cases. So there is a level of abstraction here, like because you talk about Trigo and all these things, vector databases. So how much time does it take to build these apps for layman like me? Will it take very little amount of time? Will it take a lot of time? What's your perspective?
So if you are using Embedchain and if you like literally are like logical and sound and you can read
Yeah.
basic English and you have some setup to run Python maybe on a Replit or online or your Python is set up. So our claim is like you should be able to do this in like 5 minutes. If not, then reach out to me. I'll send you a pizza. Like whomsoever is watching it. And if you're not using Embedchain, then it's a little complicated process. I'll
Okay.
tell the complication here. So it basically involves a lot of steps, and at each step there are too many decision factors to control the
Right.
accuracy of the final app that you create. So what happens that let's say if somebody is new and getting started, they'll get overwhelmed with even the fact that how do I read a PDF file? And let's say even they've read the PDF file, the next step would be, I have to store this into a vector database. What embedding model should I use? What vector database should I use? And shall I store the PDF file as a whole or shall I break it down into some meaningful chunks? And if yes, then what should be the chunk size? Should be a sentence, should be a paragraph? So this is like a lot of steps that's there. So idea is like we simplify it a lot.
Got it. So all those steps that you mentioned, choosing an embedding model, choosing a database, all that stuff, that's not needed over here. Everything is abstracted. You
Yeah.
just follow 2, 3 steps and you're actually done. Why did you choose to build Embedchain? That's the bigger question that I have, because you've been in this tech space for a bit, but why did you choose this specific use case of building Embedchain?
Yeah, so I like tinkering with AI for long, but I started full-time tinkering with AI in October 2022. I left my job and I started building a product called cookup.ai. So it was an AI app store wherein anyone can come and create app just by chatting with it. So it was like a chat interface on the left and like the app interface on the right, and you would say like, I want to create a meal planner, and then ChatGPT will use ChatGPT to put up the first version of it. So it was like a very basic version of custom GPTs that you see right now. So that's something that I started building in December 2022. I built it. It also went viral and we scaled it to like 400K monthly organic users. But we realized that a lot of developers there were trying to create apps which would be chat with X. So somebody was trying to create a chat with PDF kind of app. Somebody was trying to create a chat with Notion. Somebody was trying to create a chat with Google Doc. So the common theme there was like everybody wanted to have some sort of functionality on top of their own custom data. And when I started like doing a lot of user calls and I understood that it seems easy to me and it may seem easy to a lot of other folks, but for the majority of users this was not easy, because there were too many steps in the process. The user were not clear of how should I build it, what's the
Yeah,
best strategy to do it. So that
right.
helped me realize this problem, and then I did a lot of experiments around this space in various forms and format, and I ended up with Embedchain in its current format.
And you did this all by yourself, like because you've been a techie for a while. I'm just curious to know that you were
Yeah,
doing this
yeah.
all by yourself, experimenting.
Yeah, yeah. So been like working on this alone for like 7, 8 months. So I left in October 2022 and like literally worked alone for an year, figured out a lot of things and then got my current co-founder and CTO onboarded. And now we
Okay.
are like going full throttle into building this into a large company.
And when you say co-founder, I know him,
Yeah, you know
Deshraj,
him.
right? Like we were all together in JSS, our engineering college,
Yeah,
and remember those times of trying to build things, and you guys were crazy. Like 10 years ago, also you were very experimental in nature. And so when you say you have a co-founder now, Deshraj, and where are you based? You're based out of San Francisco?
yeah. So I just moved like 10 days back only. I moved from India to SF and Deshraj already lives in SF. So both of us are now based full time in SF.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And why did you move to SF? Like, what is the reason? Did you get funding, etc., like support? What's there in SF?
So I think it's less about the funding, it's more about the opportunity that this city, this place has. And if you're building an AI company, I think the best place right now is SF because a lot of talent being here and you get a lot of good exposure in terms of the problem statements that they are solving. So like
Hmm.
outside SF, you see like delayed order effects. So let's say somebody is trying to create a new GPU, you'll hear about it, but maybe like a week later. Here you will hear
Right.
it instantly, I mean, like in an hour or two, and you may be sitting right next to the person who is doing that. And then when you
Oh,
are in such a close vicinity and when you are hearing such good ideas, you also get to learn a lot. You are like literally at or like very close to the forefront of the space. So that's why I had a pretty sorted and settled life in India. But I
correct.
decided that if I have to build a big company, I think I should move to SF. Figured out a way, and I moved here.
Right. So Taranjeet, also tell me that you talked about your experiences, the fact that you were experimental. What were some of the defining moments in your experience? Like, did you fail anywhere in your journey that kind of helped you level up and reach this place? Because you're an entrepreneur now. You always wanted to be one, I remember. And so, through your journey, just tell me some of the failures and the experience. I won't say failures, but learnings throughout your journey of building.
This is my seventh attempt. I have failed like 6 times before this. I've been like taking attempts at since 2012. So I mean, this goes back to 2007 when I like changed my school. I was in a UP board school, changed it to CBSC board school, and I was good at mathematics and physics. I got into the computer club, which was literally a very prestigious club at that point of time. And I started quizzing. So there was this quiz called TCS IT Viz, and that like one of the things that I always still miss, but I couldn't win that quiz, but I like put in a lot of efforts in that quiz, and that was a technical quiz, so it was not a GK quiz, it was a tech focused quiz, and I
Yeah.
got early exposure about all things Silicon Valley and tech in during 2007 to 2011. And then when I came to college in 2011, I was very much clear that I'll do something in computer science and I'll do something of my own. But I had some financial crisis and responsibilities, so I couldn't go full time. But I like started taking attempts. So the first attempt that I took was in 2012, and almost every year I've taken an attempt. Those attempts taught me a lot about the team dynamics, like the team that you build. Those attempts taught me a lot about user, and those attempts also taught me a lot about how to go from an idea to a full-fledged product. So I'll like talk about like learnings that I had. And one thing which I would like to add is that my professional career also was strat. I mean, I deliberately chose it. I joined Paytm very early. I was like, when I joined, it was like 50 or 100 people there. When I
Hmm.
left, it was 1,000 plus people. Then I joined
Wow.
another
Crazy.
startup. It was again a very small company. And then I joined Khata Book, which was again 30th or 35th employee there. So I deliberately chose my companies, keeping my broader theme of building my own startup so that I get as closer as possible to the CEO or to the leadership team so that I get to learn a lot from them. And I think like one of the fundamental thing that I always tell people and try to give advice on is like the co-founder or the team that you are choosing for your startup is very, very, very important. So, I mean, most of the people right now are not happy. I mean, I'm not commenting on the general state, but I'm saying like
Hmm.
it's like the general human tendency wherein you are not happy with the current state. And for them, startup is, they feel like startup is some glory or fancy it. So they are like excited by this idea, and then they do not think about it too much. Some people are
Yeah.
excited by the idea of being with someone or being working with someone, and that I feel is a classic recipe of failure. I think like if you're dating somebody, you need to understand the person, you need to
Correct.
observe a lot of other things. Something similar should be for a co-founder. It's very important. Your ambition and your co-founder ambition should align very well. I think ambition is one of the biggest thing. If both of you are not ambitious, hungry, even aggressive, I think at some point of time somebody or the other will give up. You should be complementary, right? You both of you should not
Correct.
be good at a single skill. As a founder, you should be good at one or two skills and like good at all the other skills. So you should complement that. And then I feel like both of you should be ethically good person. Like your ethics sorted. You should not. It's bad if you are like working with somebody who's not ethically good. And then I
Right.
think a lot of other things can be figured out, like place,
Correct.
space. But I think these are some three basic things that I would like to stress upon. And one of the other learnings that I had was being an engineer, you are always excited by the idea of building. But that's not what a startup is about. If you want to build, just keep doing the job and like just keep shipping products during a night and weekend. Building a startup is like solving a problem. And the first step to solving a problem is identifying the problem. And the first step to identifying the problem is to understand the user, where the
Right.
user is coming from, what are their current set of expectation, where they are. Like, I mean, I know everything about your user, right? So
Correct.
that was like a fundamental shift in my career. When I joined Katabook, I joined as a growth engineer, but I transitioned quickly to a product manager. And the
Okay.
basic thing that I learned is like before solving a problem, who are you solving it for? Why are you solving it
Right.
for? Why is this problem important for them? They would have
Right.
like a lot
Yeah.
of problem. Why is this problem the biggest problem from them? So I feel like these two learnings helped me shape a lot of my decision making. I mean, there are definitely a lot more, but I think these are like two biggest learning that I had.
Superb, man. You've actually given a full course on entrepreneurship in a small 5-10 minutes, because I'm really excited by what you just said. And, just to add in, learning about people and understanding people is very, very important, like from an entrepreneur perspective, because you meet so many people in your journey. You hire interns initially, and then you meet co-founders, then you
Yeah.
meet, say, investors, advisors, mentors, etc. Lots of people who join your founding team, like team in general.
Yeah.
So building that bond with them is, I think, very crucial, and solving for specific problems that you understand, like the user's perspective, is crucial, man.
Yeah.
So what is your strength, man? Because you have Deshraj now as a CTO, but what is your strength?
So Deshraj is like the Silicon Valley calm engineer. I am like the non-Silicon Valley engineer, which is like, too much excited. So Deshraj, I think he is like definitely super pro at all things technical. But one of the things that I like about him is he's very much user obsessed. Like, I mean, if you just talk to him, you will not see an engineer, you will see a product person who is good at engineering talking to you. So
Right.
that's like his skill set. And I think whatever my skill set right now, I think I call myself as the non-engineering guy in the company, who is doing
Right.
everything except engineering. I do code. I do code a lot. Like I do code, but I definitely now are focused a lot on growth related efforts. So one of my skill sets is the intersection of growth and engineering. So I understand a lot about growing products. I mean, my last 4 years have been super focused on how do you scale a product, how do you get users organically. So that is like one of
Right.
the fundamental learnings that I had at my previous company. And apart from that, I am a good engineer, a good product person, so I understand a lot of things about developer, like being a developer. So I'm able to do a lot of things around developer experience, improving the product, and then like building features. I mean, like basically I think jack of few and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And you said something very interesting here, like growing a product organically, like growing a company organically. I'm not sure if I should ask this question, but can you give me 2-3 steps as to how do you organically grow a tech or an app or whatever? Like
Yeah. So
from a very layman perspective. Yeah.
yeah, so I think I'll say something which is very obvious, but if you want to grow a product, you definitely need to understand your users. So when I launched this cookup.ai, I was able, I mean, it was viral, it went viral around New Year. I mean, we are attracted like 200K users in less than 3 days. And one of the reasons why I was able to like take it viral was not some growth hack or not something. I simply understood a very common phenomena of everyone trying to create a new year resolution for new year. And I mean, I understood the user persona. I knew that, a lot of people would try to create new year from 29th of December to 5th of January. So that was
Right.
a time when like everybody would be searching for this. People would find it exciting. So why not, you have an app which helps you do it very easily. And that's how I was able to scale the product very quickly. So I always say, like, people ask me a lot, can you tell me some growth hack for this project? I always tell them something which might frustrate them, but the first advice is like try and understand who is your user and what resonates with them. If you're able to do that, automatically your mind will figure out few strategies, which if you do, your product will click to them. And once the product clicks, people will start using it. And then if your product is good, they will tell about it to other people. If it's not good, they will drop off. But you have like
Got it.
cracked the level one, which is like you're able to get your hands, like get your product in the hands of user. So like this is like one of the fundamental learning which I would like strongly do. And then this, if you're able to navigate this, everything else you will automatically figure out. I think all of us are
Yeah.
logical enough to figure out few things. So I think this is where we miss. So I would definitely want anyone to stress on this. Just like, spend some time with users. So at Khatabook, I used to do
Yeah.
a lot of user call, and my father runs a shop, but I have never
Yeah.
empathized so well with him. I mean, I empathize a lot with merchants during my time at
Yeah.
Khatabook. And I understood a lot about them. I knew that they would go for lunch from 12:30 to 2:30. And
Yeah.
that's the time I should not call.
That's exactly what is needed to build something which kind of scales, sells.
Yeah.
So you are an engineer and you are also now a product person and you also know a proper entrepreneur because of those learnings, man. That's crazy. And coming from there, like from your experiences, I want to learn from you about your perspective on the Gen AI space. What do you think about this space? Because before this, I remember that we were very excited about the metaverse and the blockchain and all that stuff. I know that was a sort of a way, but that's still there. What do you think about this space, like Gen AI space? Because you're building here, your
Yeah.
perspective on the future and the present as well.
I think Gen AI is the next big thing. Obviously, I mean, everybody has said this about previous other things that have come up. But my take here is that, so I'm an engineer, but I am a product person. So I always see things in terms of business, like cost and time. If you're able to save cost or if you're able to save time, I think that's a good addition to the business. So what Gen AI is doing is helping you save both time and cost. Imagine an engineer and an engineer like writing some code, and you have a co-pilot. Let's say I'm writing a code to print numbers from 1 to 10, just a very like
Right.
layman example, and I'll
Yeah.
literally spend like 2 minutes to write it. But let's say what if I just wrote write function to print numbers from 1 to 10, and it will automatically write it in Python. So what it is doing is it is helping you save both time and cost. So I feel like whenever a technology is there that is helping you save time and cost, I think it is inevitable that this technology will go away. I think it will stick around, because forget all the other things that we talk about. This use case of making a human productive, save time
Right.
and cost is
Yeah.
very, very critical to a business. I mean, almost every business will want it. And that's where this space will add like a lot of value. So that's why this word co-pilot, wherein it's not the
Yeah.
pilot, it's the co-pilot, and it is helping you navigate a lot of things, make better decision. I think, yeah. So this is like one of the use cases that I'm excited about, wherein I am doing this personal experiment wherein I'm noting down all the things where I waste my time on. So I spend
Okay.
a lot of my time typing. I think like typing right now is too inefficient. I'm doing this exercise just to figure out few more areas of improvement, wherein whenever I open a phone and I have to open an app, why do even I have to spend a time in like seeing the phone, getting it unlocked, and then using my finger to swipe or click on search and type? Why don't I, have that option of I will open this app? Why is that app not surfaced to the top? So like
Right.
these are some areas wherein like we'll see a lot of things happening. So we'll have something like Jarvis. Do not consider the visual part of it, but something definitely like your personal
Yeah.
assistant, which knows everything about you, which
Got it.
knows that you're going to be for this meeting, so you should take this next Caltrain, or you are like going to be here, so you should reach by here. So like I think co-pilot is like one of the biggest value addition that this space will bring to every human. And like
Co-pilot.
we have a
Yeah.
mobile phone, all
Yeah.
of us will have a co-pilot at some point of time. Maybe it's in a mobile, maybe it's a
Correct.
separate device, maybe it's a ring, maybe it's a tab. maybe it's the specs, we don't know, but that will be there.
Right now, for lots of use cases, we are having Copilot because you said the word Copilot. So because we are also building something which is like a LinkedIn Copilot, Buzzly. Yeah, and you said that for everything there'll be somebody or something, the tech that's going to predict what you want to do. And from that, I just wanted to talk about one thing which I read about is that one of the OpenAI founders, Andrej Karpathy, has his YouTube channel where he talks about OpenAI and stuff like that. So he talks about something called as uh, LLM system one thinking, LLM system two thinking, which means that system one thinking is where the system is kind of dumb. You have to tell it to do things that will do exactly that. It's not rational enough right now. But in system two, it
Yeah.
becomes rational and then it uses its own brain. So I think the future, is it going there? Like system two, definitely, because he talked about it. What do you think of this? Is it exactly what he said?
Yeah, I think these things will become conscious. So what will happen
Which
that
means
right now,
AGI.
yeah, like I'm not saying that the conscious level will be as good or as bad as we have, but these things will start having some layer of consciousness. So let's say, I mean, right now, even you can replicate that, like you can do it very well using a prompt and a set of code, wherein you can, even ask ChatGPT to introspect why is it saying certain things, what's the thought process behind it. So I
Yeah.
definitely feel like these things will start having some consciousness to them. It may be good or bad. That's something that I'll prefer not to debate on, but I think
Yeah.
they will have, right? Because that's the next step. If they're able to help us become productive, then they'll always, the next extension is they'll think about, what are the other ways that I can make this person productive. So that should happen,
Crazy.
but let's see like when and how it happens.
So, from your perspective, is this the ultimate vision of AI? Like, what is the ultimate vision of AI for you? Is this
I
the
mean,
one
my
or
ultimate
something else?
vision is, yeah, so I mean, my ultimate vision is, big fan of Jarvis, Iron Man from my school days. So I think like something like that in my pocket. I mean, I'm not saying, literally in my pocket, but something like that at the expense, like I just have it with me all the time. Form factor, I'm not talking about, but like we have mobile phone right now. I think almost all the humans on this planet should have at least one mobile phone. Not talking about kids, but I think everybody
Yeah,
above like 10-year or 11-year should have a mobile phone now, or maybe will have like in 5 years or something. So I think here also everyone should have their own Jarvis, and people will become more efficient. They don't even need to have to, take out their
hmm,
phone. They can even something have like the Apple Vision thing that's there. So that's something that I am very much excited about. I think like that should happen
it is
in
gonna
few
happen, I
years.
think.
Yeah, it is going to happen. And then I feel like AI do a lot of our job. Like we have this Upwork and Fiverr, and we have a lot of gigs being
Correct.
floated there. So what I feel like, I'm not talking about AI taking anybody's job. I'm talking about
Yeah,
the fact that there are a lot of mundane tasks that I
right.
feel a human shouldn't be doing that. Like that's their wastage of time. Unfortunately or unfortunately, some have to do it because of their condition. But I feel like if they also can automate a part of their job and do more tasks, so that's also like a good value unlock for them. So I think like that also will happen. We call this as an agent. So we'll have
Yeah,
audio
yeah.
agent, image correction agent. I mean, whatever you can imagine, like these mini armies, mini persona, they are available at your dispense. You tell them, can you help me book a doctor appointment, and they go and book it. So that's like an extension of Jarvis only, wherein like they
Correct.
get plugged into the Jarvis ecosystem. So that also will be there. But massive unlock on productivity of a human. Humans will be able to
Hmm.
save time, spend more time with their family or in the activities that they love, and like save time from all the repeating and mundane tasks that they do.
Right. People will finally use their brains. They'll think.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think AI
ChatGPT
will
is
replace
perfect.
not just yeah, AI will replace not just routine but also creative tasks because I see a lot of things happening in content creation, which is very creative stuff is being done by AI. We can't think
Yeah,
about that, and then they're doing it already.
yep, yep.
So
Definitely
that's
be there.
that. And this space is evolving very quickly as we speak. How do you keep yourself updated? Because that's something people would want to love to know. Like are there some sources or just general tinkering? What's with you? Like how do you keep yourself updated?
Yeah. So there are like two ways to be updated. One is the builder persona, like you go and build out stuff, you learn, you figure out few things, and the other is like the reader persona, wherein like you're reading about new things. And I feel like right now there are a lot of newsletters that people are running. So you can simply find out, I think you can do a Google search and find out a lot of newsletters which are curating or even writing good quality content around AI, telling what's happening, what's the latest in AI. So you can
Yeah.
use them to be updated about all things AI. But my focus and my personality is more around building stuff and staying in the game. I mean, thankfully my Twitter feed is good. I hope it remains good. I get a lot of exposure early on from Twitter only. I get to see what's happening, what projects people are building. I think that's the
Correct.
best way. And I've followed a good number of researchers also. So I mean, thankfully we get to see a lot of papers coming up. So you get a high level gist of what's happening. And then in SF, if you go to an event, I think everywhere a lot of events are happening. So it's not only SF. In India also a lot of events are happening. So you can go to some events, stay updated with what's happening. And you can build products, take them live, launch it.
Correct.
And then what happens is when you do this, automatically people who are building stuff will come in your closer circle. So that's something that I always advise people, that no matter even if it's a prompt based app, just build it and launch it on your LinkedIn, Twitter. Somebody or the other will discover it, and who knows, you might end up meeting a co-founder. I mean, not even about co-founder, who you might meet somebody who is literally very good in all things AI. So I would say increase your serendipity here by building products.
I think people will, because it's becoming so easy now to build, and also Embedchain is here, which is making things even easier. I'm gonna build something cool and just let you know. Actually planning to actually attach my Notion database to through Embedchain and query it, because I have too much content there on Notion. To simplify that process, save time. So tough to actually go through all that database and find what I had written 3 months ago. So I think this is gonna be a game changer for me. Great, Taranjeet. I think on that note, I'll end the podcast here, because we've had a fantastic conversation. Love to meet you soon, because you're now in SF. So someday either I'll fly or you come here and we'll meet someday. And keep building Embedchain, man. You're doing great, and all the best for the.
You're trying, and
100%, man. It's gonna blow up, I think. Chalo, great, man. Take care, and we'll meet soon.
Yeah, sure. Bye bye.